Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is TeacherCast Podcast episode number 186. Today, we're going to be talking all about video and streamable video, and we're going to be sharing some tips and tricks of how you guys can bring video into your classroom. We have three amazing guests today to talk all about how video can be used in your classroom. But before we get to that, I want to remind you guys there's several great things happening on TeacherCast as we head into the winter months. If you're looking to create a podcast, you can go over to educationalpodcasting.today, learn how to make a podcast, work with audio, work with video, create a great website for yourself. And if you're a tech coach out there, there's a lot of great things happening on our network, askthetechcoach.com, where we do our weekly show every single Monday, helping you make the best professional development for your students. I want to bring on today our first guest from a great company called Streamable Learning, Doug Ashton. Doug, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks for having me, Jeff. Glad to be here and glad to bring a couple of guests with me, too.
I am so glad that you're on the show today. We're talking all about video. You are not a stranger to video. You created an amazing platform called StreamableLearning.com. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, we came into the space about 3 years ago and looked around at what was being done with video in the classroom, and we kind of made some adjustments. And what it's doing is it's creating a really scalable, cost-effective way to bring a ton of content into classrooms. So we're solving kind of two things, which is get that volume of content going, not make it a special event, but really make it an everyday event that's available to teachers, and also really change the cost or the price paradigm to make it really affordable. And those are the two things we're most proud of and what we've accomplished in our short 3 years.
Now, I love the concept of streamable learning, the virtual connections with things, and really what we're going to be talking today about is not just connecting to classrooms, but connecting to museums, connecting to larger educational spots. What can we find on Streamable Learning? Where are some of the places that you are able to take your kids through StreamableLearning.com?
We can take them to museums, zoos, aquariums, universities, art and historical organizations. We're working a lot in the performing arts area to bring a lot of that to the table. You're going to see with college and career readiness, we're going to be bringing colleges and corporations to the table. So really, content is not the issue. It's everywhere. It's really organizing it, getting that content ready to do a really quality program, and get that content into the time frames that the classrooms really need it in, which is 30, 40 minutes tops, to get that content in and then get everybody on their way.
And today we're going to be talking to two great educators. I want to bring on Martin McGuire from Chicago Public Schools. Martin, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in Chicago these days.
Well, in Chicago, we are about 600 schools, 600 plus schools, and somewhere in the area of 400,000 students. Technology, being able to provide something equitably across the district, across all of those schools, is always a little bit challenging. The way we used to do things in a district, in terms of video conferencing, connecting to the informal learning institutions that are out there and about, was always difficult and was limited. It was limited to very few schools. So within a district of 600 schools, we had maybe 5 that were doing video conferencing and maybe 2 that were doing it on a regular basis. We wanted to change that, and that's when we ran into Doug Ashton and Streamable Learning. And we really liked the model that they put together. It made it so that video conferencing, which has always been somewhat problematic in a school environment, the peripheral devices that were needed, the setup time to get a video conference going, Streamable Learning with their model, they were able to come in and provide us, in year one with over 200 programs that every one of our classrooms across all 600 schools had the option of taking part in. So here we are a few years later, and we are probably going to do somewhere just north of 500 programs in a school year. And it's really taken off like wildfires. Just coincidentally, we're about to do a program with the Mexa Arte Museum, which is in Austin, Texas. And last year, when we took advantage of that program, we had over 100 classrooms connected to that single event just in Chicago. We haven't had 100 video conferences done in the 2-year span. So to be able to do, 100 classrooms connected to a museum in a single 30-minute presentation was really something for us.
That sounds mind-blowing and overwhelming all at the same time to go through 600 schools, to have all of that stuff going on. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that throughout the course of our show today. I also want to welcome the virtual field trip coordinator from School District 23 in British Columbia, Canada, Mr. Mark Howick. Mark, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, Jeff, thanks for having me.
How's everything up in Canada these days?
Things are great up in Canada. I'll just basically give you sort of the same kind of story that Marty talked about here, but we come at it kind of from maybe similar perspectives. Our district is obviously a lot smaller than the Chicago School District. We have probably a little over 20,000 students in our district, and probably around 45 schools, something like that. And we kind of started out running a program, we called it virtual field trips, where we basically connected with museums and zoos, aquariums. And we had a whole bunch of life-size systems, we kind of call them the legacy systems now. And we kind of ran around and we basically couldn't get to everybody. So we sort of transitioned to just, having a webcam and a microphone in our school that our teacher librarians kind of ran for their school. And so we started doing sessions all over the place, a lot of the sessions in the US, Australia, etc. And that's when I sort of heard about Doug's program, the Streamable Learning program, and I actually went and contacted him because I really liked his model. It's super easy. Now our teachers now can just simply book their own sessions. They don't necessarily need a lot of help from us, and it's been great. I mean, the teachers have really been loving it. And we also started a program over about the past year called Live Learning Canada, where we're basically bringing more and more Canadian content online. Some of the museums across Canada and different places, just to kind of add to not just the Streamable Learning content as a whole, but kind of just Canadian specific content as well. And that's something our teachers are really looking for.
All of the links that we're going to be talking about today are going to be in our show notes over at teachercast.net. Of course, this is the TeacherCast podcast, episode number 186. Guys, as we get into these different topics here, we're in the middle of our school year. Why is it important that teachers are bringing video into the classrooms? With so many things going on, why video? Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's always been one of those things where, we want to get the kids out for actual field trips, and we're not obviously against that. It's become so expensive. I mean, even to take the kids locally, you need a school bus, you need to go, there's costs to the museum and stuff like that. We just find we can take kids to, quite frankly, more exciting places, have them talk with scientists, talk with authors, a lot of these things they would never really be able to do. And, it's really cost effective as well. So it's kind of taking your kids, to places that they're learning about, or people that they're actually, studying, and being able to talk to a lot of these people and go to a lot of these places, kind of the next best thing to actually, going there in person.
And Martin, do you find that, with all the students that you're working with every day, do you echo that same thing? If it's just easier to do it through a TV screen versus getting on a bus?
Well, absolutely. Well, we're not against field trips, actual field trips in Chicago either, with all the great institutions that we have in and around Chicago. But it is incredibly costly. If it does happen, it may happen one time, maybe 2 times a year, if students are lucky. And it certainly is limited to the institutions that they're able to visit. With Streamable Learning, we're visiting institutions from all across the country. And why use video in the classroom? Well, in Chicago, and as I'm sure it's the same in everywhere else, it's the ability to kind of bridge the formal and informal learning institutions together. And it's about bringing subject matter experts directly into the classroom. And, the timing for these things are perfect, the length of time. You can actually complete one of these virtual field trips in anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes. And it's really it's been a huge hit in Chicago.
So as we go through here, Doug, everybody out there might have the same question, which is how do you do this, right? I'm in an iPad school, I'm in a Chromebook school, I'm in a Windows school, I'm in a BYOD school. If we're looking to bring in virtual field trips, if we're looking to really get into video, what do we need to have in our classrooms to be successful?
Well, I mean, that's why circa 2018, the time is right for this type of approach, because most of the schools now have the basic capabilities to run streaming into their classrooms, whether it's a whiteboard, a monitor. You just need one device, that phone, that tablet, that computer that's connected to the monitor, and you're in great shape to get going. The internet, obviously faster, better. And we use Zoom technology. Zoom is a great partner for our company. Zoom has really changed the game in video. They've dropped the costs of what's required on both sides. So many aspects of video, the costs have just dropped out of it. An important part of this is on the content side. We've been talking a lot about the schools, but think about the content providers. In the old days, if you were going to get into this game, you had to kind of commit to a full distance learning program. And that was a lot of money. You might have to go out to your donors. Now with different approaches and the cost of video, a lot of our sites do not want to be in the full distance learning game with full-time, et cetera, but they want to participate. And so today's technology, the way we're doing things, allows them to come in and do a day or two a year, which is all they want to do, all they're capable of doing, but also be part of the content, the educational content community. And when you're streaming, you don't have to worry about the camera and the other things on that side, which really I do have to comment based on, all the things we talked about, which is there is a huge role for video conferencing. Marty and Mark and I talk about it all the time. That one-on-one premium experience with a classroom is an amazing kind of premium opportunity. What we're doing with streaming is really trying to create the basic model. Here's how you start to learn how to work with video, live video in the classroom. And as more teachers experience it, which most have not, as more do, you're more likely to see people asking for those premium experiences. And that's the match we're trying to create. We're trying to drive people to use that live streaming, see what it can be, and then migrate into some premium experience as well.
Now, Martin, when you're working with all your students and in your 600 schools, how do you organize things here? Do you find one program and then run it times, as you said, maybe 100 classrooms? Or do you give them a menu of things? How does it work in your district?
Well, working with Streamable Learning, we're able to actually provide the district at the start of the school year with a full year calendar of events and activities that are going to be going on. And we allow them to actually start registering. Is that the first day that they start at the end of the summer, the teachers come in, the catalog of events is ready, and they can go in and start planning out their school year and determining what virtual field trips they want to take using Streamable Learning. Most of the programs are done anywhere from 2, 3, sometimes 4 times in a day. There are even opportunities now where we've had programs from Streamable in other languages and in Spanish. A recent one that we did in Spanish. So now they're starting to actually provide programming in other languages. So the options are there for teachers. We have over 100 different museums that we have access to as part of the Streamable Learning catalog of events, and over 500 different programs for teachers to choose from.
So just so we're clear about this, when we're talking about these programs and these events, are these live events, Doug, or are these pre-recorded events that people can do at their pleasure here?
Well, we like to use the phrase live and interactive. So we're live, puts pressure on the performance, right? Weather pressure, network pressure. We did a program yesterday with a local author from our office, Jonathan Miller, and his Sammy the Dog books. He's an illustrator and an author. He does a wonderful job with programs. Mark's district and Chicago were both involved in the program. Our power in our office went out 15 minutes before the program. But luckily, we plugged a lighter into a device and we basically powered the whole program from our IT guy's truck.
Wow.
And so there's a lot that goes in with live, but we don't like scripted programs. We want it to be kind of feel spontaneous. And then there's the interactive side, which is really 90% of it, which is the ability to ask questions, have your classroom be recognized. You know, here, this question's coming in from Central Okanagan. It's coming in from Chicago Public Schools. And the question is dealt with in a live, manner. We have some math programs that we started this year from South Africa, where we've started using some other applications in the program. So the content provider can see the kids drawing and doing their equation and reacting to different answers that they're coming up with. So everything is about live and interactive, but we do record the programs and they are available for recording. And that's also important, particularly for middle school, high school, where there may be some classes that can't attend the live. I'll give you another example too, a little hybrid model we just started last month, which is to create a recorded program, but then have live Q&A available. We did that with Tom Thielen, who's one of the best anti-bullying presenters in the country. And so he did recorded episodes this summer, and then we hold live Q&A sessions. So yeah, really neat stuff. We're still in the early days. We're playing around with things, trying new things. But it is live and interactive is our bumper sticker.
So Doug, what does this look like from the content producer side? Like, for instance, if I was walking my family through a museum in New York, am I going to see somebody who works at the museum maybe standing in front of a dinosaur, holding an iPad, talking to students? Like, what does it look like from the museum's end?
So for most of our programs, these are done specifically for us. So they can be in a studio, they can be in a section of the museum that's cordoned off for 30 or 40 minutes. That's generally how it works. However, if you came to our Hemingway house, historic tour and talk about the life of Hemingway, Dave Gonzalez, who's been the curator there down in Key West for many years, he walks around the house with an iPhone and gives his knowledge, to our classrooms, but he's also walking around and there's tourists around and the six-toed cats are there. And, so that's a different type of program. So you see a few different models. We actually recently started experimenting with programs where there is a live audience there as well. Mm-hmm. So there's different models, but I would say for the most part, most of our programs are being done specifically for us, for our classrooms.
Nice. So let's kind of shift things a little bit here, because I want to talk about all different kinds of video. And many teachers are getting into using the, streamable video, recorded video, using YouTube for videos. I want to ask Mark and Martin here about what their students are doing. Is it important for students to be creating their own videos for their own uses? Martin, what do you think?
I would say yes. In Chicago, they're using all of those different things. We're using streamable learning. We're bringing subject matter experts into the classroom. Teachers are using digital content from publishers, all different publishers. Anybody you can think of, Schlesinger, Scholastic, Disney. We have teachers that are using YouTube and in the classroom, and our students are using a lot of that same video. So it is very important. Is when it comes to the creation of items, of digital resources, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to see that in Chicago as well. And they do everything from podcasts. They're doing daily news announcements in their schools. When they create their portfolio, they're including videos into their student portfolios as evidence of work that they've completed. So I would say yes is very important.
And when we're looking at these videos, Mark, I want to get your opinion on this. With students of all ages, where do you encourage students, or where should we be encouraging students to put these videos? Are we encouraging kids to get their own YouTube channels and pop them up? Are we saying just use OneDrive, Google Drive, whatever drive? Where is the best place for students to put their videos so that way they're safe, so that way there's teachers have access to it. What can we do with these things? We're talking a lot of content here for kids.
Yeah, I mean, just from our perspective, I can kind of echo some of the comments that Marty made. We've got all kinds of things happening in schools. Kids are producing videos. There's newscasts. There's all kinds of, different applications. Even in VR, I mean, the kids are even creating their own VR video and environments and all that kind of stuff now. I'm not sure if there's an easy answer to that one, Jeff. Like, where do you store this stuff? I know some of our kids, some of our schools are heavy into the Google Classroom. They're uploading video. They have YouTube channels, all this kind of stuff. We don't really have a cohesive reasoning behind, where do you put all this video? Like, that's a great question. We also kind of run into some of the issues. Our own sort of district and Ministry of Education in British Columbia has issues with video that's stored in the US due to some of our privacy laws and stuff like that. So these are issues that we're all really wrestling with. I mean, I could just say in terms of popularity, YouTube and Google Classroom and the like is definitely the most popular right now.
And
we're also using Google in Chicago. We use Google Classrooms. As far Google Classroom, we have Google Drive for all of our teachers and for our students. We also have a learning object repository where students and teachers can upload videos and store those videos and share those videos across the district, make them accessible within our network and at home. So that's another way of storing and sharing resources.
And just to echo what Mark and Marty are saying, there is no right answer, but maybe you have one of your own. We'd love to hear from you. You can, of course, find us on Twitter at TeacherCast. Leave us a voicemail over at teachercast.net/voicemail. Or, of course, if you want to be a part of our show, you can always email us over at feedback@teachercast.net. And we would love to know. I mean, today, guys, I was talking to our film teacher at school, and we were trying to set up the new YouTube channel for the film club. And we're just sitting here talking about things, and we're sitting here realizing, why are we taking the time to upload all of these student videos? Some might be good, some might be not, some might be just, average work, when you could really put them all into Google Drive, stick them on a Google site, and there you've got everything, and you're still under the security of your domain, you're under the security of no one's going to look for it on YouTube, and you're saving yourself literally hours because you don't have to worry about uploading things. There's a lot of answers. Guys, we want to hear from you guys. If you're out there listening, and we want to know what you guys are thinking. Where do you store your files? How do you grade your files? I think that's also a good question that we can ask you guys. And what kind of projects are your students doing out there? We want to know about you guys. And of course, we're here talking to Doug Ashton from Streamable Learning. Now, Doug, if you're a content provider, let's say that you're listening to this show and you are a museum. How does somebody reach out to you and say, I want to be a part of this system, I want to provide great content to school districts like Marks and Martins?
Well, that's a big part of what we do, which is we spend time with folks getting them ready to do their programs. I have a museum coming up in the next few days where we've done 7 or 8 test sessions with them. We've taken them from never having done this before to getting them ready to do their first programs. So, it's our big goal is to get people past their first program, because once they've done their first program, their own lights go off. They start to think about it. They really kind of self-evaluate what they can do differently. But it's really not that hard. And, the technology has made it easier, but we try to encourage everybody to get started, get going, because even outside of what we're doing at our company and with districts like Mark and Marty's, these organizations need to start embracing video as part of their overall mission. So while we'll hire a videographer and pay for a videographer to capture the audio and video at a first timer, or even a second, third, or fourth timer who just doesn't want to deal with it, our goal is to make them self-sufficient so that they can do this outside of our platform for other audiences or whatever it may be. So we've never failed to get somebody up and running to do a program. Sometimes it takes a lot of creativity. Marty and Chicago brought us the Ocean Lab, which did our underwater great white shark programs off the coast of Mexico. I remember Marty testing with them in an underwater swimming pool to see how we can make this work. So we have some crazy anecdotes like that. But by and large, it's really easy to get going. And then what I'm seeing is a race to the top. As people see what other people are doing, they want to do it like them. And it's making everybody better, which in the end means the average program is going to be terrific.
And, for a museum or somebody who's a scientist or something, it's got to be difficult creating those first lessons, coming up with the lesson plans. Now, Mark, I know you deal with a lot of teachers up there in Canada. When it comes to the teachers creating lessons around the videos, what advice do you have for somebody out there who wants to try this? Maybe they want to do a virtual field trip. Maybe they just want to have their kids make their podcast. What advice do you have for teachers as far as just creating that first lesson?
Yeah, basically, I mean, for the stuff that we do with Streamable Learning, and we do a whole bunch of other kind of virtual field trips with providers from all over the place. Streamable Learning it's been a really great place for teachers to start. But as a general rule, you don't just kind of throw the video onto your smart board or your projector or whatever it is, and the kids kind of sit there and go, oh, who is this person? For most of these, and I kind of tell this when I sort of do our training sessions with our teacher librarians that run the program in all of our schools, you need to do some research with who are you talking to, why are you talking to them, how does it fit into your unit or the area that you're studying. All this kind of stuff makes it much, much more meaningful for the kids. And it's almost a little bit like, they're talking to a celebrity because they know a bunch about this presenter. They know where they're presenting from, and it's there's a little bit of that, and it's a pretty meaningful experience for our students.
Martin, what do you think when you're working with teachers and they might want to do this but not quite know how to do this?
Right.
How do you get them over that hump?
Well, I think one of the great things about the Streamable Learning content is that there's so much of the content that's built in and around the observance calendar. So that, for example, in January around Martin Luther King's birthday, we'll have some programs for that, for Black History Month, for example, or Women's History Month. So that it really kind of gives teachers, and the programs are are short enough that teachers can actually get in, audit an event, see if they like it, if they like the experience, and then try it out in their classroom. A lot of the events that are done come with pre and post materials. So teachers have activities they can do prior to an event or after an event. And a lot of it is kind of worked out for the teachers.
Well, it's an important point too, because look, when you're teaching, let's say you're teaching grades 3 and 8 Civil War history in the U.S., or you're teaching something about First Nations in Canada. There are certain times that the districts are going to be covering that material, and there are certain times they're not. And if they're not, they're most likely not going to attend the program, which is why it takes so many programs. To offer an effective live streaming calendar to schools, you have to do many, many, many events. You have to offer them multiple times in order to create that match. Because in the end, what are we aiming for? We're aiming for supplemental curriculum, not one-off events. And so, like, working with our local district here in Charleston County, South Carolina, we spoke with them last month and said, when are you teaching Civil War? They're teaching it in December. We developed a custom Civil War program for them in the month of December when they're covering the topic with a South Carolina-based site. Now, those programs are available to all our subscribers, but we know they're going to have a great fit with Charleston County. Another example is in, let's call it marine science. We offer a marine science program with a great center like Alaska Sea Life, Ocean Wise, Moat Marine, Seacoast Science Center, all these different places that we work with. We offer a marine science program every month. Our Animal Encounter series is very popular. Instead of putting all the programs in World Wildlife Week, we offer our Animal Encounter of the month. So we're trying to make sure that we touch, that curriculum the best we can. We work with our districts trying to learn their pacing and their sequencing, But at some level, it's a volume game. You have to offer enough programs to create the match for that district.
Now, one of the things that you guys had mentioned earlier is that a lot of schools are moving into augmented and virtual reality. What do you guys know about this? Because I hear this topic a lot. We've done a few shows on it. Is this the time of year, as we're moving into 2019, are a lot of schools really embracing AR and VR? And if so, how?
Well, I can tell you that, we had a long call with a VR company the other day, and our first step is to do some of our programs using those kind of fancy cameras to get the capture and to understand how the audio and video worked and how it looked. But I always come back to, we don't try to be anything more than we are. Mm-hmm. We'll leave VR to others. We're trying to create that basic platform of scalable programming that's cost effective, that introduces people to video from the school side and from the content side. That's our lot in life. And that's where we like to be. I think as a longtime technology person, in different roles in my life, the media loves to get ahead of the curve and get ahead of the reality. And so virtual reality creates a lot of great, anecdotes, but in terms of scaling it, making it cost effective, and as both Marty and Mark have talked about, making it universal through a district, we are nowhere near that. Mm-hmm. And so when you really go into a classroom today, getting basic video programming available every day that schools can afford and use, that's a tall enough task. We don't really want the other tasks right now.
Martin, what are you seeing in Chicago? Are teachers starting to get into VR, AR?
I haven't seen a lot of it in Chicago. I know that there's been a couple of pilots that have popped up here and there, but it just, as Doug mentioned, it's about what a school can afford to do. And something that they can truly integrate into their classroom. And is it scalable? Is it something that we can do in just a certain number of schools that are privileged enough to have that opportunity? We look for actual programs that we're going to be able to distribute equitably across the district. And we want to make sure that every school has the opportunity to take advantage of video in the classroom. And in the case of what we're doing with Streamable Learning, that's exactly what we've given them.
Mark, has AR and VR made its way up to Canada?
Yeah, we've actually been running like a VR program just the last couple of years, and it's something that I manage as well. We've just been using Google Expeditions, though.
Oh, okay.
I find that, and we haven't. There are some teachers that are playing around with AR. I know for our expeditions, we have one of the expedition kits. It's kind of 30 units. The kids love it. It's great to be able to take them to a place where they can look around. You can lead them on expeditions and such. But logistically, it's difficult. It's difficult to get all the devices charged.
Right.
In this case, the technology is simple. It's the logistical issues of getting everything charged and distributed to kids and the headsets and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's something on the horizon. And I also just wanted to mention, there's a program called Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. It's run by a teacher in Ontario. His name is Joe Grabowski. And he basically does a free program. He's also does work with the National Geographic, and that where he connects to scientists. He runs 40, 50 plus sessions per month connecting with explorers, adventurers. A lot of them are National Geographic people. Talking to him last year, on the horizon, he's thinking possibly in 2019, he may start doing a pilot, like a session or two, where it's going to be like a live streaming VR session where the kids can put on a headset and actually go through, a place of interest. So that's something that's exciting. We haven't really seen it yet, but it is on the horizon. We're not quite there yet, obviously. So
I would say definitely check that out. We just added the link there to our show notes. You can, of course, find it over at exploringbytheseat.com. Exploringbytheseat.com. I got to check these things out. This looks pretty darn cool. Thank you for mentioning that. Guys, as we wrap up here, the question always comes is, what is next, right? And, Doug and I were talking about the ISTE conference. We're right on the corner here of turning into ISTE season as we, come into the new school year here. What does the future look like? Martin, when you're looking at the future of 600 schools, what'd you say, 1 million students, something like What do you guys see as the future of the classroom? I'll ask that as a general term. And then where does video fit in? Video conferencing, video streaming, video learning, video creating. What does that future look like for students 5 years down?
In Chicago, I think, what the next big thing for us to tackle is a universal curriculum here in the district. And then once we have that in place, it's going to be a lot easier to work with incorporating video, whether it be video on demand as support resources for what's being taught in the classroom. Again, being able to bridge to subject matter experts at museums from across the country using Streamable Learning. Again, using Streamable Learning to do video video conferences. So we think of the streaming programs that are taking place as kind of phase 1, phase 2 being video conferences that can be taken advantage of. And then, of course, allowing students to create their own resources, digital resources, and being able to store those and share them within their district.
Mark, what do you see? Is education in Canada so different from education in Chicago?
I don't think so. I mean, we participate in a lot of sessions across the U.S. Our teachers love, they love sessions. Most of the stuff that we do is applicable in our curriculum. Our curriculum just changed in British Columbia, and it's changing in a lot of our provinces. It's a little bit more open-ended. They have the kind of big picture questions, and the teachers have more freedom now to sort of figure out ways to get to these sort of big picture, these big ideas. Universally, and I've talked with people all across the country, all across the world, we're learning a lot of the same things, and we're all struggling with kind of how to get there, how best to get there. I really think video is one of those things that it never really gets old. It's one of these things that's so engaging with students, and it's definitely something that we're going to continue to use for a long, long time. So we're excited about any type of connections that we can do with kids over video. So
I love it. And if you guys have any questions out there for anybody on our panelists, you can, of course, reach out to us over here on TeacherCast. We are definitely going to be doing more shows on video conferencing, streamable conferencing in the near future. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for your time today. Mark, where can we find out more information about the great things that you're doing up in British Columbia?
We have a website. It's actually vft23.weebly.com. Sure if you get that in your show notes, but we have a list of resources that we sort of start our teacher librarians on. It's probably listed about 50 resources from across the world. That is a really good starting place if you want to do virtual field trips. Streamable Learning's on there, Live Learning Canada, of course, and a whole bunch of others. Many are free, some are pay, but it's a really great place to start if you're interested in doing video connections and collaborations in the classroom.
Nice. And Martin, where do we find out more about the great work you're doing?
For Chicago, you could also visit our website at cps.edu. I guess what we're working on right now the most is being able to scale our Streamable Learning program to the rest of the district. So those are the things we're working on.
Very nice. Doug, the conversation here around video is so important. It's so easy. It's cost effective. It doesn't matter what platform you have. Teachers can bring video projects of any kind into their classroom. So I'm going to end here with the question for you of how does a school district get connected with Streamable Learning to get their kids engaged?
Well, contact us, www.streamablelearning.com. We work on custom pilots for districts. We believe in long-term, long pilot programs for districts because we know it takes time to get teachers going and experience something. So we're pretty generous with our pilot programs to make sure that you've had the time to evaluate what we're doing. In Canada, we're Live Learning Canada. We've got a lot of specific Canadian content coming for Canadian schools, same type of thing. Get started. We'll help you work with some pilot programs and the like to get you going. So we're pretty patient. We're here for the long term. We know this can be new. So we want to work with districts, make sure that, you've had the time to really experience and look at, how video can play a role in your school. Let me just say one thing in parting too is both Mark and Marty have been integral through their own personal work, but their districts, in really designing the service. So we don't kind of come to the market and say, here's what we've got. We work with a lot of our districts to go out and get the content. Tell us what you want, we'll go find it. I've been doing that even during the last few weeks. One of our states that has gotten very active, we're soliciting content partners in that state that those state schools really care about. So the easiest way for me to get content is when I have a district that's local or in state, and the museum cares about that district and vice versa. We build a lot of our content that way. So we'll also go hunt down content for a district that, has some special interests, like I talked about earlier with Charleston County and setting up a Civil War month for them in December. So it benefits everybody. So, that's how we approach things. So if you're in Canada, it's Live Learning Canada. .ca, and if it's in the US, it's streamablelearning.com.
Very, very nice. Guys, one more time, thank you so much for being here and being a co-host on our show tonight. And thank you guys out there for taking the time to make TeacherCast your home for professional development. Of course, we have 9 great shows for you on iTunes each and every week, bringing you live content. And you can join us over on our TeacherCast Insiders program and get exclusive content by going to teachercast.net. And on behalf of everybody here in the TeacherCast Educational Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.